The elephant in the room. That's what the Columbia Journalism Review called Donald Trump's mental health today. The president's sanity is something that everyone thinks about and most journalists have not figured out how to discuss. As more psychiatrists and psychologists come forward publicly diagnosing Donald Trump as unfit to serve in the presidency, some mental health professionals continue to insist that no diagnosis should be offered without privately examining the patient, and then no diagnosis could be offered because of patient confidentiality. That puts two rules in conflict for psychiatrists and psychologists. The other rule being the duty to warn. Mental health professionals have the duty to warn people when other people's conditions could do them harm. And no one in the world could do more harm to more people faster than the President of the United States, who could plunge the world into nuclear war in minutes. Writing in the Columbia Journalism Review, Lee Siegel says, mental illness does not need to be professionally diagnosed. We don't need to be told by a doctor that the guy who is coughing and sneezing at the other end of the train car is probably sick, though we don't know if it's a cold, the flu, bronchitis, pneumonia, or an allergy. When someone is compulsively lying, continuously contradicting himself, imploring the approval of people even as he is attacking them, exalting people one day and abusing and vilifying them the next, then the question of his mental state is moot. The safe thing to do is not just stay away from him, but to keep him away from situations where he can do harm. Lee Siegel will join us next, along with Dr. Lance Dotis, a former psychiatry professor at Harvard Medical School.
I watched when the World Trade Center came tumbling down. And I watched in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands and thousands of people were cheering as that building was coming down.
He did not watch that. He did not see that. Was he lying? Was he delusional? Is either one of those answers acceptable for the President of the United States? Joining us now, Lee Siegel, a columnist for the Columbia Journalism Review and author of the upcoming memoir, The Draw. Also with us again, Dr. Lance Dotis, former professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. And Dr. Dotis, I'd love to go to you for a diagnosis of that particular piece of videotape. What do you see when you see him saying that?
Well, you know, again, he's lying, and the question that has been so confusing about him is this diagnostic issue. It actually has a perhaps surprisingly easy solution. The traits that are important, lying, cheating, hurting people without any remorse, these are the traits that go into any diagnosis, and it's the traits that are important. The final label, the diagnostic label, changes all the time. We're on the 5th edition of the diagnostic manual now. There'll be a 6th and 7th. The label just doesn't matter, and people argue over it ruthlessly. But we know as a fact that he has these traits which indicate important personality disability, and those are the things that make him dangerous. So without haggling over the diagnosis, there's no question about his having a mental instability and that being a danger.
Lee Siegel, you have watched the journalism world haggle over, bargain with itself over this very question. How do we discuss, should we discuss at all, the candidate Trump's mental health, now President Trump's mental health? And it seems like you're finished haggling.
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing that. You know, we're faced with a clear and present danger and an imminent danger. I think that what people are talking about around their kitchen tables should now converge with what people are talking about in public. There are very few taboos in American life. I don't know why the president's mental health is still a taboo in journalism. This guy is sick. This guy's mentally ill. We make these judgments every day. We make them when we encounter a nanny or a babysitter or a child's teacher or a doctor, and on and on and on. And this man has, as you were saying earlier, has the power to do great harm. For me, the criterion is that he is inhabiting his own world. With all due respect to the doctor, he may not be lying. I hope he is lying, because at least that means that he knows the difference between fact and fiction. You know, I mean, compared to this guy, Nixon's like Gandhi. If he's not lying and he believes what he's saying, then he corresponds to what the definition of psychosis, which is a safe, whose combination has been lost. And I think that's what he is.
Dr. Dotis, go to that point that Lee Siegel just mentioned, the issue of whether he's lying or not lying about what happened in New Jersey. We know it didn't happen. And so what difference does it make whether he knows that what he's saying is false or he doesn't know and it's completely delusional?
Well, I think that it makes a difference to us if we were going to try to treat him, but it doesn't make any difference in terms of his danger. Either way, it's a big problem. Lying in the way that he does it, repeated, dangerous lying, makes him unfit and is a sign of serious mental disturbance. And to the extent he doesn't know reality, and I agree, by the way, I don't think he does know reality clearly. He doesn't have a clear grasp of it because he changes it. He makes up reality to suit his internal needs. But in any one case, whether it's one or the other, either way, he's unfit.
Lee, do you have sympathies with the journalistic struggle about how to deal with this, or are you fed up with the journalistic struggle? It's gone on too long and they should get on with it?
Well, no, I understand it. People are trying to do the right thing. This is a situation in which it's unprecedented and people are trying to find their way. And I think journalists are very cautious about being turned into scapegoats and having Steve Bannon, whose dictum is the Breitbart dictum of the best action being the enemy's reaction, of having that turn against the press. But I think they should get over it and just, man up and say the guy's bonkers and develop a framework for that.
Dr. Dotis, quickly before we go, what do you make of Lee's point about when you're on the subway car and you see somebody at the other end who's coughing and sneezing and has all these issues, no one has to tell you that that person's sick. Is that a reasonable example to use in this discussion?
It is, and that's important because that's one of the problems with the Goldwater rule and why it's really no longer applicable. 40 years ago, it might have been okay, but you actually do not need to do an interview with somebody in order to diagnose these traits, which are themselves diagnostic, you might say. So absolutely, that's true.
Lee Siegel and Dr. Lance Dotis, thank you both for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. MSNBC's live coverage continues into the 11th hour now with Brian Williams. That's next.
Tonight,